Once upon a time, in a world where the boundaries between the oceans and the land were as fluid as the tides, there existed a kingdom beneath the waves. A kingdom where the secrets of the deep were guarded fiercely by the royal family. The kingdom was called Tessis, named after the ancient goddess who ruled over the waters. In the heart of Tessis, a young girl named Karashika was born. Her hair shimmered like strands of silver sea foam, and her eyes held the deep, dark mystery of the ocean. She was different from the others in her kingdom, for she was chosen for a task of great importance and great danger. From the moment she was born, the priests of the sea prophesied that Karashika was destined for a mission that would change the course of fate itself. The ocean had whispered in their dreams. She would be sent to the land above, to seduce men, to steal their essence, and to claim their destinies. With every soul she claimed, the power of the marine kingdom would grow stronger. It was a cruel fate, and one that Karashika did not understand. But the ancient laws of the sea were not for questioning. Her mother, Queen Narina, the ruler of Tessis, had told her only that it was her duty. And so, Karashika was raised in the deep, where the sunlight never touched, taught the ways of both allure and manipulation. She was trained to move with the grace of a siren, to sing songs that could lure sailors to their doom, to touch the hearts of men and pull their strings with a mere glance. It was the eve of Karashika's departure, and the air in the royal hall was thick with tension. Queen Narina stood by the grand mirror that stretched from floor to ceiling, looking out into the abyss beyond, her silken robes flowing like water. "Karashika, my daughter," the queen said softly, her voice heavy with the weight of centuries of tradition. "You know what you must do." Karashika nodded silently, her heart torn. She had no love for the task set before her, but she loved her people. The ocean had given her life, and it was now her turn to repay that debt. "I will not fail you, mother," she said, her voice steady, though it quivered with uncertainty. The queen turned to her, her sharp, silver eyes meeting Karashika's. "You are strong, my daughter. You were born for this. When you take their destinies, you will not just steal their lives. You will give Tessis dominion over the land. You will be more powerful than any before you." But Karashika could not forget the words she had overheard from the elders, the whisper of a warning. The price of destiny is never paid without consequence. The first man she encountered on the surface was a young fisherman named Doka. He was tall, with rugged hands and a heart untouched by the cruelty of the world. His village, nestled on a small cliffside, was known for its peaceful waters and prosperous harvests. But Karashika knew that beneath the calm, there was always a current pulling, always a destiny waiting to be claimed. The night she emerged from the sea, she stood at the edge of the village, bathed in moonlight. Her pale skin glistened like polished pearl, her silvery hair cascading down her back in waves. She was like a dream, too beautiful to be real. Doka was returning from his boat after a long day of fishing. He caught sight of her standing there, illuminated by the moon's light, and his breath caught in his chest. She was the kind of beauty that made the world stand still, the kind that seemed to have been crafted by the sea itself. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice thick with awe. Karashika smiled, her lips curling with a mix of innocence and danger. "I am a wanderer," she said, her voice melodic, like the song of the ocean itself. "I've been lost for so long. I need someone to guide me." Doka stepped closer, captivated by her presence. "You're lost? Where are you from?" Karashika looked away, as if in sorrow. "From a place far beneath the waves," she whispered. "But I seek something, someone. I've come to find my way back." Her eyes locked with his, and he felt something stir deep within him, an instinct that told him she was not like other women. There was power in her gaze, something ancient and unknowable. And yet, there was something else, a loneliness that made his heart ache. As the days passed, Karashika and Dokan grew closer. She wove her spells over him, drawing him deeper into her world, promising him wonders he could scarcely imagine. She spoke of the depths of the sea, of treasures beyond belief, of magic that could transform a man's life. Doka, who had never known anything beyond the daily grind of fishing and village life, was enchanted. But deep down, he could feel the pull of something darker in her. What Karashika had not expected was the way Doka made her feel. She had seduced men before, used her powers to claim their destinies. But with Doka, it was different. His goodness, his pure, simple heart confused her. The longer she stayed with him, the more she found herself questioning the coldness of her mission. One evening, under the starlit sky, Doka took her hand. "Karashika, I don't know what it is about you," he said softly, his voice full of sincerity. "But I feel like I've known you forever." She looked at him, her chest tight. For the first time, she hesitated. "I'm not like other women," she said, almost regretfully. "I don't care about that," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "I just know that you're someone I need." For the first time, Karashika felt a stirring in her heart, a feeling she had never known. Was it love? Was it something stronger than the power she had been trained to wield? And in that moment, the tide of destiny began to shift. Karashika knew the task she had been given, but she also knew that with Doka, she could not follow the path set before her. Her heart, once cold and bound by the laws of the sea, was now torn between two worlds. The world of the ocean, where her destiny awaited, and the world of the land, where she had found something far more precious than power. She had to choose. Would she take Doka's destiny, as she was meant to, and fulfill her mission? Or would she defy the will of the ocean and claim her own fate for the first time in her life? Few days later, while she was cooking for Doka, the Queen Mother appeared to her. "What do you think you're doing? I sent you here on a mission, but you have chosen to fall into the hand of a mere mortal. I'm giving you one last chance. Kill Doka and take his destiny, or I will destroy him, and also destroy you," the Queen Mother said. Karashika began to plead. "Please, Queen Mother, spare his life. I will do whatever you want me to do. I will spare his life only if you bring more souls to the kingdom, and go far away from him." The Queen Mother said, Yes, I will do what you say, Queen Mother." Immediately the Queen Mother disappeared. Karashika also disappeared to another village. When Doka returned home, he couldn't find her. She was gone. So, he started looking for her in the village. Karashika became dangerous as she sleeps with different men, break marriages, and even kill people using her power. As the days passed, the allure of power became stronger than the pull of her heart. Karashika, torn between the love she felt for Doka and the duty she had been born to fulfill, found herself at a crossroads. But the currents of destiny are not easily defied. And for Karashika, the whispers of the sea were louder than ever, calling her back to the shadows from which she had emerged. It wasn't long before the sweetness of Doka's love began to fade in comparison to the intoxicating thrill of her mission. She realized that in order to truly master her powers that had been bred into her soul, she had to surrender to them fully, to weave her magic as the ancient ones had taught her, to manipulate the fates of men. She had to cast aside all pretenses of innocence. Karashika was no longer the naive girl who had hesitated. She embraced her destiny with a ferocity that terrified even the gods. And so she began to seduce men not just for their hearts, but for their very essence, stealing their life force, their power, their future. Each time she slept with a man, she took a little more. Each kiss, each caress, was a thread unraveling their fate, pulling it toward her, until their destinies no longer belonged to them. Karashika was not just taking lives, she was rewriting them, erasing their future and replacing it with her own. It started subtly. At first, husbands in the village would vanish overnight, leaving behind wives who were too frightened to speak of what had truly happened. But Karashika's power grew with every encounter, and soon, things became darker. Her touch began to change. She had found her way into the beds of powerful men, married men, respected leaders of the land. As she entangled herself in their lives, she twisted their hearts and broke their marriages. She would whisper sweet promises, and they would betray their wives, abandoning families they had known for years. Karashika took their futures piece by piece, taking their will, their wealth, and their strength. But that was not enough for her. No, her hunger for power and dominance was insatiable. In the quiet of night, when the moon hung low over the sea, Karashika would visit those who had wronged her, those who had tried to resist her charms or had dared to defy her. Her powers had become deadly, her presence like a shadow that followed men wherever they went. She could speak to the darkness in their souls, drawing out their most terrifying fears. One glance from her was enough to steal their breath, to drain the very life from their bodies. Doka later found Karashika, but her powers already grew stronger. Doka had no idea what was happening. His love for Karashika blinded him to the changes in her, and she worked her charms on him, too, pulling him deeper into her web. But there were moments when Doka would see her in the distance, her eyes far away, and a shadow would cross her face, a coldness that made his blood run chill. He tried to hold on to the woman he had fallen in love with, but with each passing day, Karashika grew colder, more distant, more consumed by her power. His fears began to mount, but it was too late to turn back. Karashika had already made her choice. Karashika's rise to power soon became legendary. The land trembled under her sway as she wove her influence across villages, cities, and towns. Marriages shattered like glass, friendships were torn apart, and the noble families found themselves at war with one another, all thanks to the woman who had seduced them, broken them, and stolen their futures.
Her actions did not go unnoticed. The gods, once indifferent to her rise, began to stir. They saw what Karashika was becoming, a force of chaos and destruction. Her power was no longer just a gift of the sea, it was something far darker. She had become a monster, not just of the ocean, but of the land as well. The gods knew that if left unchecked, she would destroy everything. A council of gods, old and powerful, gathered in secret. They knew only one way to stop Karashika. The sea's chosen one, the one who had once been a beacon of hope, had to be destroyed. In the darkest corners of the world, whispers began to spread. Karashika must fall. But she was not so easily defeated. By now, her powers had reached their zenith. She had become a creature of the night, a being who could warp the very fabric of reality with a glance, a kiss, a touch. No man could resist her, no woman could stand against her. She had taken so many lives, so many destinies, that the ocean itself seemed to tremble in response to her growing darkness. The tides, once calm and soothing, now raged and boiled, as if they were trying to wash away her corruption. But Karashika would not be stopped. Her hunger had turned insatiable, and her power was like a wave crashing down upon everything and everyone in its path. There was no going back now. She was the master of destiny, hers and everyone else's. One evening, as Karashika stood before the sea, looking out into the horizon, Doka approached her, his eyes filled with sorrow and disbelief. "Karashika, what have you become?" he asked, his voice trembling. He could see it now. He could see the destruction in her eyes. Karashika turned to face him, her smile cold, distant. "I am what I was born to be," she said, her voice like a melody but laced with venom. "And you, Doka, you were never meant to be a part of my world." "No," he cried, stepping forward. "You're not this. You can't be. You're the woman I loved." Karashika's eyes softened for a brief moment, but then, like a tide receding, the softness was gone. She raised her hand, and before Doka could react, the air around him seemed to freeze. The earth beneath his feet cracked open, and the winds howled, a whirlwind of chaos. With a final, desperate look in his eyes, Doka realized what she had become, what she had always been destined to be. And in that moment, Karashika did what she had done countless times before she stole his fate. From that moment on, The lands were ruled not by kings or emperors, but by Karashika, the destroyer of destinies. Her power stretched across the seas and the land, a force of nature too powerful to resist. The gods, defeated and silent, could only watch as she reshaped the world in her image. Her legend, a dark tale of seduction, destruction, and the cost of unchecked ambition, spread like wildfire, a warning to those who dared to tamper with fate. And Karashika, now a queen of darkness, continued to claim the lives of men and women, twisting their destinies and leaving behind only the cold, empty remnants of what could have been. As Karashika's reign of terror grew, the lands trembled beneath her touch. Her power had become a force of nature, a force that could not be contained. Her seductive abilities had led countless men to their ruin, leaving entire cities in chaos, marriages destroyed, and the very fabric of society unraveling. No man could resist her charms, no leader could stand against her influence. She was a being of immense darkness, and her name was whispered in fear across the world. But power, no matter how vast, always attracts those who would challenge it. In the highest heavens, where the gods once held dominion, a single, bright star shone through the gloom of Karashika's dark rule. His name was Azrael, the warrior of light, the most powerful servant of the gods, and the champion of righteousness. Azrael was a man of both unmatched strength and unyielding virtue. His sword could cleave through the very fabric of the universe, and his faith in the divine was unshakable. The gods, seeing the destruction Karashika had wrought, knew that the time had come to send their champion to the land to face the creature she had become. They had long watched her rise, and though they had hoped she might return to the light, they now saw that there was no salvation for her unless she was stopped. She had become a force of corruption, a twisted shadow of the being she had once been. Azrael, a man of pure conviction, accepted his charge with honor. He knew the task would not be easy. Karashika was not merely a sorceress. She was a force of nature, a creature bound to the sea and the tides of fate itself. Her power over men was legendary, and her ability to steal destinies had made her nearly invincible. But Azrael believed in the strength of the human soul, and he believed in the power of redemption. He would stop her, not just to end her reign of terror, but because he knew that deep inside, somewhere, Karashika still clung to the memory of who she once was. The battle between Azrael and Karashika was destined to be unlike any other. Azrael arrived on the land, his armor glinting in the light of the fading sun. He strode into the heart of the kingdom, his presence like a burning flame against the overwhelming shadow that Karashika had cast over the world. The very air seemed to shift around him as his faith radiated outward, pushing back against the dark influence that hung over the land. But Karashika was no mere mortal. Her magic was drawn from the deepest, most ancient parts of the ocean, and her powers had only grown stronger with each life she had claimed. As Azrael entered her domain, the ground beneath his feet quaked, and the winds howled with a terrible, unnatural fury. "Azrael," she said, her voice a soft, melodic whisper, though there was no kindness in it. "You have come to challenge me? To take what is mine? You, who represent everything I've left behind." Azrael's eyes were filled with compassion, even as he tightened his grip on his sword. "Karashika, I am here to save you, not to destroy you. You are not beyond redemption." A cold, bitter laugh escaped her lips. "Redemption?" she scoffed, her form shifting like a creature of the deep, her eyes glowing with a dark, unearthly power. "There is no redemption for me. I was born for this. I am destiny itself, and I will not be stopped." With a swift motion, Karashika raised her arms, and the sky darkened. The seas themselves seemed to respond to her call, roaring to life as massive waves began to crash upon the land. From the deep, shadowy waters, monstrous shapes began to rise, creatures of the abyss, their forms twisted and unnatural, their eyes glowing with malice. Azrael stood firm, his sword raised. He called upon the divine power that flowed through him, summoning the light of the heavens to shine through the darkness. A brilliant beam of light erupted from his sword, cutting through the waves and striking down the creatures that Karashika had summoned. "You are powerful, Karashika," Azrael said, his voice calm but unwavering. "But power alone cannot define who you are. It's not too late to stop. It's not too late to return to the light." But Karashika only grew angrier. The more Azrael spoke of redemption, the more she felt the weight of the chains that bound her to her darker self. Her magic surged, and the very ground cracked and split beneath her power. In a blinding flash of energy, she hurled a bolt of lightning toward Azrael, a blast of dark energy that threatened to obliterate him. Azrael dodged the attack with ease, his movements graceful as a dancer, his sword cutting through the air with divine precision. "I won't fight you with anger, Karashika. I will fight to restore what you've lost. The woman you were she is still in there. I know it." For a moment, the fury in Karashika's eyes faltered. She hesitated, the memories of her former self flickering in the depths of her mind. But before she could fully grasp them, her heart, poisoned by the darkness, rejected the thought. She would not surrender. Not now. Not ever. The battle raged on. Azrael's sword clashed against her dark magic. Each time he struck, Karashika unleashed more of her power, summoning waves, storms, and creatures of the deep. The very heavens seemed to tremble as their clash shook the world. In the final moments of their confrontation, Karashika summoned her greatest weapon. The seas wroth a torrent of darkness and fury that could erase everything in its path. It was her ultimate weapon, a force that could unmake the world itself. She unleashed it with all the hatred and pain she had accumulated over the years. But Azrael, unyielding in his faith, summoned the power of the gods. With a cry of pure devotion, he raised his sword high and called upon the light of the heavens. In that moment, he did not strike at Karashika, he struck at the darkness within her. The clash between light and dark was deafening. The earth trembled, the seas boiled, and the sky split in two. Azrael's blade met Karashika's dark wave, and with a final burst of divine power, he shattered her magic. The force of the blast knocked her to the ground, the dark waves dissipating into nothingness. The storm that had gripped the land slowly began to subside, the oppressive weight lifting from the earth. Karashika fell to her knees, exhausted and broken. For the first time in years, she looked up at Azrael, her eyes filled not with fury, but with something else, something like sorrow. Azrael stepped toward her, his sword lowered, his expression filled with both compassion and resolve. "It's over, Karashika. You no longer need to be this thing of darkness. You can choose who you want to be." For the first time, Karashika's heart ached not with the hunger for power, but with the longing for something else, something that she had lost long ago. A soft, reluctant tear traced down her cheek. I don't know if I can go back," she whispered. Azrael knelt beside her. "You don't have to go back to who you were. You can choose a new path. The light is always there, waiting for you, if you're willing to seek it." And so, Karashika's reign of darkness came to an end. Her power was sealed away, her influence broken. Azrael did not strike her down. He did not deliver the final blow that so many expected. Instead, he gave her a choice, redemption, not through death, but through living a new life. The world began to heal. Peace was slowly restored, but it would never forget the lessons of the past. The danger of unchecked power, and the possibility of redemption, even for the darkest souls. As for Karashika, her journey was only just beginning. Whether she would find the light again, or whether the darkness would always haunt her, remained to be seen. But for now, the world was safe, and peace reigned once more.